Good morning. Thank you for joining Forge Breast Cancer Survivor Center for our coffee conversations. Today, we're going to be talking about the importance of patient advocacy while in treatment with social worker Rashad Hayes. I'm so excited. We worked with him before. He is such a joy to be around, and he has such a great background in social work. And I mean, so many different things. Rashad does a lot. And I'm going to let him tell you about those things. So Rashad, if you could just introduce us to you.
Well, first, I want to say it's an honor to be a part of this group again. I love working with you all. My name is Rashad Hayes. I'm a man of many hats. I am a social worker, a credential course instructor, an author, a motivational speaker. But my favorite hat is being a cancer fighter. Um, I was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 22. I'm 29 now. I'm 29 now, and I've been living with it, and it's been a part of my life. It's one of those things I take pride in, and I always tell people I'm a fighter, and I think it's important to recognize yourself as a fighter because that's where your power is. And so I'm honored to be here today and just kind of talk with you all about such an important topic in patient advocacy, because I think that is going to be the key for a lot of great things in the future when it comes to cancer treatment and cancer and fighting that fight.
Yeah. And thank you so much for sharing a part of your story. I watch your videos and, I just always am amazed at just what you're able to give to others in spite of, because that is a superpower. It is. And, another superpower that we're talking about today, right? Patient advocacy. Like, let's break
Yes.
down, what does that even mean, right? Because it could mean taking up for yourself. It could
Right.
mean, talking, like, what does it mean?
So to me, it's just that patient, that individual being able to articulate their needs. It's almost like, hey, this is what I need. Like, I know you're the professional here, but this is what I need in order to be comfortable. This is what I need to be at peace. And so it's just being able to speak up for what you want, your desires, your needs, and just being able to communicate. I think when it comes to advocacy, some people are so afraid of hearing that word cancer that they forget to show up for themselves as well. Like, I remember the first time they told me, hey, you have cancer. I was like, what? I have what? And then they just gave me a piece of paper with these big old words, told me to read it. I couldn't even spell it. So how I was going to read it, I don't know. But I didn't really advocate for myself in the beginning. And so as I was going through this process, I learned that it was almost like they were trying to treat something without the star player. I was the star player, and so I want you all to know you are the star player in your treatment. And so you have to be able to advocate for yourself and say, hey, this is what I need, and this is how I need to feel before I can actually be comfortable going through this.
Yeah, I love that. I've never heard anybody refer to it as like, you can't treat me, but not the star player. I'm the star. Okay, who's going to tell you what feels good? Who's going to tell you what makes
Right.
sense, right? So when somebody is starting their treatment or whatever it is, like whether it's cancer or just any type of illness or any type of treatment that they're going through, why is it so important? Like you said, like, I'm the star player, but can you kind of expound on that a little bit? Like, why is it so important for a person to not only have others to advocate for them? Yes, right. Like, we'll have our care team and our nurses and all of those other things, but why is it so important that we still advocate for ourselves?
I like to tell people that nobody knows you more than you know you. So even when you're going to the doctor, you may spend an hour at the doctor, you may spend a few hours going through treatment, but once you go home, they don't know what you experience. And so advocating for yourself is telling them, hey, this is what I noticed when I got home. When I laid down, I noticed this pain. And so now they can address it because they have the full scope of everything. You know, in math, they used to do with the was it algebra with the variables when it'd be like 1x plus 4 equals whatever, and solve for x. Well, you have to be able to bring your x to the equation and tell them, hey, this is what I noticed. And so what happens is that it ensures that the health team is able to treat you completely. Like, you may say, hey, I noticed that I don't have energy after chemo. Well, they may give you something else to assist with that. So it's just all about making sure that you're giving yourself a fair shot to have all the opportunities to have a successful treatment. And that's letting them know, hey, this is what I'm going through. This is what I'm experiencing.
I'm wondering if sometimes we don't advocate for ourselves because we feel like we're stepping into a lane that we're not supposed to be in.
You're absolutely
Because
right.
you think, well, you're the professional, right? You're the doctor. You should know I feel like this, and you should know that I don't, the medicine's not adjusting well with my sleep schedule and yada, 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 I wonder if that's a factor.
So I will tell you, it is. For me, that's how I started off as like, hey, doctor, you tell me I need to do this chemo. I'm not asking no questions. Let's do what we have to do. But I realized something. I still wasn't being the star player, and so I still wasn't showing up for myself and actually saying, hey, this is what I need in order to be comfortable. For example, it could be something simple as, hey, doctor, it's cold in here. Can I get a blanket? Some of us, we're over here shivering because we don't want to ask for a blanket or whatever the case may be. So I think it's one of those things as remembering who you are as a person and knowing that it's up to you to define what's best for you and actually work as a team. Remember, it's a team. And as a member of a team, you have to come together and work together. So that doctor is going to work on his expertise. You're the expert in your life. And so you're going to be able to bring that, and that doctor's going to include what he's going to include. And together, y'all have a true plan.
I love that you say you're an expert in your life, right? Like, yeah, we have medical experts, mental health experts, even cooking experts, but in self, right? We are the expert in that and trusting ourselves to know like what our needs are.
Yes.
And putting that together, because sometimes what we want isn't what we need. But
Right.
being able to say that this is something that I expect out of my care. How can we accomplish the goal of healing, or how can we complete treatment, but also I feel like I can function as a person and I also can do things within my means.
Right.
Yeah. So for somebody where this is like a new thing to them, right? Like I was one of those people, like it's in this stage of my life that I'm becoming more involved in my own care. It was difficult, especially growing up. You just know, you just go to the doctor, you just listen to what they say and you leave, you
Right.
take medicine or whatever. But even now, like I'm reading prescriptions and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to take this. Like, let me let me call the doctor to see, like, is this the only option for me? Does this make the most sense? Here is why I am nervous about it. But it took me so long to get to that point. And I know that the same can be said for some others, right? What are some baby steps that someone can take? And I know you listed some, or you talked about some just now, but are there any others that can be like, I'm making that small difference so that I can make the big decisions and ask the big questions?
So I think it all starts with relationship. Uh, Being able to find that person on your care team or even just a doctor. I always tell people, for some reason, we leave our personalities at the door when we walk into the doctor's office, when we should just be who we are. If you're an Alabama fan and you see he or she has an Alabama name tag, you may say Roll Tide. And that little thing, what happens is that it opens the door for you to see that doctor as a human. I think so many times we put these doctors and people on these pedestals that we kind of stop telling them what we need to tell them because we're afraid of what they may say, right? And so if we say, hey, well, look, I like the color of your shoes, or I like the color of your shirt, and before you know it, it becomes, okay, now it's a part of your treatment. Now it's one of those things where now you feel comfortable asking those questions. I think a lot of times we don't ask those questions because who is this stranger? What is this stranger going to do? What is this stranger going to say to me? But this stranger is helping you potentially save your life, right? And so in doing that, I think it's getting a chance to know that person. And I always say, the best way to know somebody is to ask questions, and just, hey, so doctor, what's going to happen to me with this treatment? Oh, okay, well, I have this thought process. Can we accommodate that? And before you know it, you're going to naturally find yourself asking those hard questions or those deep questions that you struggle with. So I always start with get to know the person that's treating you, because they may not be a good fit for you. And sometimes you have to be able to say, hey, I need to find a new person because I didn't feel comfortable here. And that's okay.
And that was what I was going to lead with next. Like, what if the person does all of these things, right? And then the person that, like the physician or their care team, didn't listen to them. I mean, because that can be, that can cause you to withdraw more, right? Because
Yes.
you're like, oh, like, I don't even know what I'm talking about. I sound stupid. Like they feel offended. I don't want to offend my doctor because it's saving my life, in the situation where a person has finally, gotten out what they need to get out as it relates to their care, like things that they want out of their care or things that they're nervous about, but they don't feel heard, they don't feel understood. What are some recommendations you have for them moving forward? Like, should they explore other options or should they kind of just unpack that with their care team?
So it's kind of a twofold. Again, I'm going to talk about myself. I was diagnosed at 22. I'm 29 now, so I've been dealing with this for the last 7 years. In my 7 years of dealing with this, I have had 8 different oncologists, and it was my choice. It was one,
Mhm.
I'm sorry, this wasn't a good fit. I think I need to move on. So I'm an advocate of going where you feel comfortable, but I'm also an advocate of having those tough conversations. Each place I went to, I went to the healthcare team. Hey, this is how I feel. Can we address this? And if I tell you and we don't address it, okay, well, I just want to let you know I'm seeking outside options. And I
Mhm.
want to go because, again, I'm the expert on my life. We're the star players. And so you want to be somewhere where you feel like they're treating you and they hear you, because when you feel heard, you feel comfortable. And when you feel comfortable, you may tell them things that, you may have hesitated at first, but now you can say, hey, this is what my real issue is. So I think, to really answer your question, I think it starts with communication. Communication is the key to unlock doors to many opportunities. But if you remain in silence, then you never really had a fight in your own care plan. And again, and I keep telling this, we are the star players in our treatment plan because we're the ones that have to show up. We have to follow the recommendations. Like, we have to do all these things. And if we don't, then the plan is not going to work. And so I want you to understand your power as a patient. Like, you are the star player. Like, we're coming to see you. We're here to treat you. And so that's what I always try to keep in mind. And I always like to tell people that we're really here to do whatever you need us to do to make sure that we can get you treated and get you back home and get you back to that sense of normalcy that you're craving.
Mhm. I like that you laid out that there are different ways to go about it too, right? Because some
Yes.
people aren't open for those hard conversations, and that's okay.
Right.
Everybody's going through different stages. We have different personality types. We all had a conflict so differently. Conflict to one person can look like their hair is on fire, right?
Right.
And the building is burning down. But conflict to people like me, it's just like, okay, let's talk about it, But everybody's not there. And so knowing that it's okay to say, okay, this isn't working for me. I am doing my best to advocate for myself, but I think that I will feel better and I will be heard more in this type of setting, and just exploring those options.
Yes.
Um, so for someone who's at that place, um, what are some things that you think they can learn from that kind of experience where they say, hey, like, you're not hearing me. Um, I've moved to a different care team, once they get to that new care team, and obviously trying to also continue to advocate for themselves, what are some things that you think they should keep in mind in a transition such as that?
So, one, you have a standard now. You know how you want to be treated. And so one thing I always typically do is that if you transition to a new team, don't be afraid to let them know, hey, this is my experience. And I want you to, help work together to accommodate that experience. So when I was at this team, they didn't make me feel heard. So now you're able to identify those red flags and you tell them up front. And now it's like, okay, you got a chance to, you got your boundaries. It's like building that boundaries around and allowing them to really get a chance to know you for you, but also being respectful of the boundaries without making you feel like you're not heard or making you feel like you don't matter. Because if you ever go through a treatment like that, it's going to be a tough treatment for you, because it's almost like you don't want to go because you don't feel like they're happy to see you or that they actually care. And I think that's one thing that I always try to tell people is that it's okay to feel like your healthcare team is a part of your family, because in a sense you're going to have an intimate conversation with them. You're going to have that, hey, I'm scared, or hey, I need comfort, or whatever. And before you know it, that relationship is going to build. And I think it's really important to really address those things. So then that way, you now set the standard for how people are going to treat you. Because if they don't think you're going to answer any questions, they're not going to ask you. Or if they don't get a chance to know you, like my doctors know if I look lost, hey, Mr. Hayes, you got any questions? And I'm going to say, yes, here's my question. What's really going on? Because I know when they say these words in my mind, I'm still trying to process, what are you actually telling me?
Mhm.
What's the end result? So are you saying when I do this treatment, I'm going to be good? Or are you saying it's not a possibility? Like, it's so many things that go on through the heads of being a patient. Um,
Yeah.
I think about just a simple going to a PET scan. Like, if my doctor calls me today and be like, hey, we got a PET scan, the first thing I'm going to ask is, did you find something wrong? What's going on? Why do I have to do this? So if we keep in those emotions, to being honest with ourselves, if we are advocating for ourselves, your doctor is going to know when something is off. Your doctors or your healthcare team is going to ask you, hey, are you okay? What's going on? Do we need to bring in a social worker? Or what is it that we need to help you get to that place of being able to think clearly?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's all a skill. It's all a process, and
Yes.
it's okay to not get there like
Yes.
immediately. It's probably going to take a while. The goal is what's important.
Right.
Be able to say, "Hey, like this doesn't feel comfortable to me. Can we talk about it?" Or sometimes I know my experience is like I would have all this stuff wrong with me, and I would get to the doctor's office. And I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't say a word. I wouldn't. I would just let them tell me whatever I needed to do for next steps and just say, okay. But meanwhile, I've got all these side effects that I don't know what to do about. I've
Right.
got all of this anxiety about what next steps look like. And so I think that knowing that it's okay that you have a process to get there makes it easier because
Yes.
you might just beat yourself up a little bit.
Yes. I always say take baby steps. And I always believe in this. If you have questions that you don't know how to ask, write them down. Or if you're embarrassed to ask those questions, what I used to do, I would write on a sticky note and say, here, doc, and I'll run out of the door, and whatever the case may be, I know he got my questions. And when we come back, we'll address them. And then I will be like, oh, okay. I can trust this person. And that's one little trick I started to do myself. I don't have to do that now, but it took some years to learn that it's okay to give them something and get up out the door and talk to them
Yeah.
about it later.
Mine was a little bit different. I emailed, like I'm an emailer. And so I was just like email my nurse, like I'm just like, I'm sorry, I'm asking you so many questions. I'm just typing this as it comes to my mind. But it did help open the door to like, okay, like when my doctor came in the room, he was like, okay, you have some questions. I know you talked to your nurse. Let's just go ahead and talk about these things first. And then we move to the next steps. And so that's another thing that I wanted to ask you too before we wrap. Like, are there resources to kind of help someone get an idea about how to begin to advocate for themselves and what that looks like in real time, right? Like I know you mentioned like, okay, we get into the doctor, maybe you do go blank like I used to, and you had all these questions before you got there, and now you're in the room and you don't know what's wrong with you. You don't know why you're even at the doctor, you had the appointment. And so what are some resources that are available to people who kind of need help with that jump start on asking those things and saying whatever needs to be said?
So I think the best resource that I realized is with the American Cancer Society. I always say get connected there first. And the reason why I say that is because being connected to the American Cancer Society is going to give you different resources that you never would have known of, right? So they may be able to give you a list of resources that are in your area, and they may say, hey, breast cancer, hey, well, there's Forage. There's a nonprofit named Forage. You should go consider them. And so it gives you like I know we're out of this stage, but do y'all remember the white page or the yellow books where you had
Yes.
everybody's phone number? That's why I always say go to the American Cancer Society first. So then you know what's available to you. Once you know what's available to you, then you can, if you know your diagnosis, you can then go to those nonprofits or you can go to those organizations and they can kind of help not only advocate for you, but give you those steps that'll help you grow and that'll help you get to that point of saying, you know what? I got this. It's almost like riding a tricycle. You start off with the tricycle, and before you know it, you on just your bicycle, just cruising down the street and having a good time. Um, for me, that's kind of what started my journey. Is that I first started with Google. Google did not work for me.
Google,
Google,
nobody's friend.
Google had me going down a rabbit hole, and I thought I was dying in 2 days. Like Google messed me up. But then I got connected with the American Cancer Society, and they started connecting me to other resources. Then I started breaking it down and going to the local meetings. And before you know it, I was like, oh, okay. One, I'm not alone.
Mhm.
Two, these questions are not dumb questions. Like I'm not the only one with these questions. So I'm learning that everybody has these same questions. And so that's really my tip. It's just to start where you are and don't feel like you have to carry this burden by yourself. I'm guilty. When I was first diagnosed, I didn't tell my parents. I kind of held it to myself. I was a senior in undergrad. I was like, I just got to finish school. I deal with the cancer stuff later. And unfortunately, it got so bad that I needed to tell them, but it was like I was still trying to protect them. And that's
Yeah.
one thing I never understood. And I think I'm still trying to figure that out is that you're diagnosed with cancer, but yet you love everybody else so much that you're trying to protect them instead of doing what's best to advocate for yourself and allow them to, help you fight. And I
Mhm.
think that's one thing that I always try to tell people is just getting connected with people, whether it's an intimate setting like this or just others that are going through your same fight, because they're going to understand your emotions a little bit better. And you're then able to then know what it means to advocate for yourself. You know what it means to go to the doctor and say, hey, this is what I need. And before you know it, you're able to do it on your own. And then you become the advocate for somebody else. And it's like you're now teaching them what you wish you knew when you was going through the process yourself.
Yeah, like, and all of what you said embodies just what Forge does, like literally, it's all about the connection and the
Yes.
support. It's all about the support groups. We have peer matching. I mean, connection helps you through those things, connecting with others who get it, connecting with others who just want to listen and be present for you. Unfortunately, everybody does not have that amazing support system that they want to protect. Some
Right.
people don't have a support system at all. And sometimes they'll get diagnosed with cancer and be the first person in their family with cancer at all.
Right.
I know we've had clients who've come and their whole family is just like, I don't know what that is. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to tell you. And so to be able to come to a place and be able to connect with others and find out, there are ways to get through this and ways to do it with someone and get the support
Yes.
that you need via whatever it looks like, support groups, peer matching, whatever, just to be able to be with someone and connect with someone and talk through it because they can give you some of those testimonies that you take a little piece from and their
Right.
testimony and listening to it and saying, okay, well, I love that they ask these questions. Maybe these are some questions that I can ask, which is another thing that we did. We made a list of questions to ask your doctor when diagnosed, because that's the hardest time. Like when you hear it, you just hear that. You don't
Right.
think about all of the questions that you probably should ask. And so I love that you mentioned like getting connected to others and getting connected to local agencies to find others who can help guide you through the process.
No, you're absolutely right. And I will tell you this, when you know exactly what you need, it's easier to look for what you're trying to find.
Mhm.
And most people don't think about it like that. Like if you don't know what you need, you're going to be searching and searching and searching. So why not get connected with people that are going through similar things? So then you can learn more about it and like, oh, okay, this is what I need. Now I'm going to tell you now, if you run across two social workers like ourselves, then hey, you're in good hands. We got you taken care of. But but I know that's one thing that I will say about patient advocacy is really reminding yourself that you are the star player.
Mhm.
We can't do anything without your permission and without your input. And so you matter to us. We literally take pride in what we do. And so it's just important about you showing up for yourself. And remember, you're the star player. That's the message for today. You're the star player. So why not advocate for yourself?
Right. Thank you so much, Rashad. I have enjoyed this. I feel like we could go a whole lot longer, but for the sake of time, we're going to wrap up. I'm just so thankful that you were able to come on and, share your journey with us as well, but also speak from that professional standpoint, right? Like, what does patient advocacy look like? And I'm hopeful that this would be so helpful to someone who is in need of taking those first steps.
Yes, again, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And again, y'all do amazing work. So I'm honored to just be a part and be a support as needed.
Thank you.